Welcome to Unit 4 podcast. We will be studying the Community Language Learning Method this week. However, before we do that, we need to review Stephen Krashen's theory of second language acquisition and his 5 hypotheses. The acquisition learning hypothesis looks at the difference between learning a language and acquiring a language. Learning a language is what we do in our normal high school foreign language classes. You learn the grammatical and syntax rules as well as vocabulary. However, Krashen believes that language must be acquired to become like a native speaker. This happens when the target language is used in meaningful conversations. In the monitor hypothesis, there must be formal study of language in order to know the rules and to internally correct your mistakes. This, of course, happens with more fluent speakers. You know if you sound right. The natural order hypothesis states that the rules are acquired in a predictable way for learners. If you're in a school with lots of English language learners, you'll see this. For example, many times the students are fairly fluent, but still have trouble using he or she and deciding which to use. Until they're ready to use the correct pronoun, continual modeling and instruction are good, but they won't use it until they are ready to. The input hypothesis is based on Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Students are best able to incorporate new information, whether it's language or content, when the input student receives is one step beyond his or her current stage of competence. Krashen refers to this as comprehensible input and labels it I+1. And we see this all the time in the elementary school when we do guided reading. We work with the students just a little bit above their reading level. Finally, in the affective filter hypothesis, the amount of input that a student can receive is influenced by a number of variables such as anxiety, self-confidence, and motivation. As a teacher, you want to lower the affective filter to help students lower their anxiety, boost their self-confidence, and build their motivation. If a student has a high affective filter, no matter how good the lesson, learning will not likely take place. Now onto the community language learning. It follows Krashen's monitor theory and affective filter hypothesis. It's also patterned upon counseling techniques. The teacher becomes a language counselor. In the role of counselor, he or she supports students in learning. The goal is for students to take responsibility for their own learning and not really think of them as students, but more as clients. In the community learning method, the teacher strives to lower the affective filter. The teacher makes sure his presence is not perceived as a threat. Thus, many times you stand behind the students. The aim of the teacher first is to communicate an empathy for the student's inadequate grasp of the second language and build a warm relationship. The students knows that the teacher is there to support them with the acquisition of a new language. There are 5 stages of adaptation ranging from the student being completely dependent on the teacher to the student speaking freely in the second language. Community language learning has a view that language is for communication. Speaking and listening are emphasized. Careful listening is needed to learn to discriminate and see the similarities and differences in the new language. In community language learning, the teacher and students form a community of learners. They trust each other in the process of learning a language. They trust and sense that trust and sense of community leads to lowering the affective filter and thus increases language acquisition. For more information about community language learning, please read your text. Thanks for listening. As always, let me know if there's any questions or comments. Have a great week.